Welcome to Please Me, the podcast bringing you bold conversations and big clit energy. I'm Eve, your host, on a journey from trauma to sexual liberation. Join me and my guests as we dive into conversations around orgasm equality, self-love, body positivity, and essential sexual education. Let's reclaim pleasure and close the orgasm gap one empowering conversation at a time. Last week, I had the pleasure of interviewing Jen Wadke, a pleasure and orgasm coach, and let me tell you, we had a titillating conversation that you won't want to miss. Jen is the author of Touchless Orgasm and shared incredible tips for getting in touch with your biggest sex organ, your brain. Be sure to check out the video version of that episode on Patreon for ad-free listening. See the show notes for the link. As we speak, I am on a beach on the beautiful island of Puerto Rico, drinking a piña colada and wishing all my listeners all over the world a very Merry Christmas. Feliz Navidad and Happy Holidays to all. Please Me is for mature audiences. Sit back, relax, and surrender to the pleasure of Please Me.
Like, my sexuality feels very messy, and I just was very hesitant to put a label on it for a really long time because it felt so boxed in if I were to use a label. But I think like the more and more I've chatted with bi people and learned more about the bi community and learned more about the label and kind of what that means, it felt more and more comfortable for me.
Hello, and welcome to Please Me, the podcast that aims to destigmatize conversations about sex and sexual health by turning the sheets into our classroom. Today, I am so excited to welcome, like a sister soul, right? Danielle Bezalel. She and I have so much in common. She is the host and creator of Sex Ed with DB, and that is a multimedia platform, a feminist multimedia platform, I should say, bringing you all the sex ed you never got. And centering on the LGBTQ and BIPOC experts, which I am part of both of those communities. So I should definitely be on your show. And
Sure.
she recently, I'm like inviting myself, she recently started a mini series called Rom Com Vom. And I listened to a couple of these episodes and they were incredible. And it's about the host and the guest going back and looking at an old rom-com of the 80s or 90s, right? Are they the 80s or just the 90s?
Just 90s to early 2000s.
Okay,
Yeah.
so 90s to early 2000s. And she strips away the hidden toxic messages and rewrites the script on love and sex. And what an amazing idea, because we do get so much toxic messaging. So with that being said, welcome to Please Me, Danielle. How are you today?
Thank you so much for having me. It is so great to be here. What an intro. I am very lucky to be here with you and chatting with you all about sex and rom-coms and sexual health. So thank you.
I love the concept of that, of the rom-com vom. And I think it's such an amazing concept. I'm always talking about everything that you see on television and in porn and on TV shows, etc., always focusing on penetrative sex and on male pleasure. So do you want to just dive in and tell me what brought you to the idea of the concept of this podcast?
Yes, I would love that. Everyone watches plane movies, right? You're on a plane, you're like, okay, I gotta choose something. I'm really excited to just sit here, look at my little square, and just probably watch a movie that I've seen a million times. That's usually what I do on planes if I can watch a movie. And the plane movie that I watched this past summer was You've Got Mail. And most of us have seen this movie. Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks. It's a cute little 90s movie all about AOL and them being these like secret pen pals. And I had seen this movie as a kid and thought that it was so, lovely. It's New York City. It's fall. It's so cutesy. And as an adult, when I rewatched this movie, I was like, holy shit, there are a lot of problems in this film that I need to tell somebody. Spoiler alert. Eve, have you seen You've Got Mail? I'm assuming you have.
I don't know if I've seen that one. I mean,
Okay.
if it has, it's been so long that I don't remember, but continue.
Okay. Spoiler alerts
I'm
ahead
not
for
the
You've Got
biggest
Mail.
movie buff.
Okay.
I watch a movie and then I forget about it.
Totally. Okay. Like most of us, right? I'm a movie freak. And so I watch movies over and over again. I have a weird memory to remember lines and things like that. And I do impressions. So I really love movies and TV shows. And so when I rewatched You've Got Mail, again, spoiler alert, this movie came out over 25 years ago. So we're well within the zone of spoiler alerts
Okay.
to spoil. But essentially Tom Hanks plays this big bookseller guy, like an owner of Barnes and Nobles, and he essentially falls in love with Meg Ryan's character, who's like a local bookshop, cute children's book owner. And he legitimately puts her out of business and they still end up together in the end. And there's this insane line towards the end where he says something like, if I didn't put you out of business and it wasn't me who did this to you, who basically took away your mother's business from you, could you still love me? And I'm like, oh God, this is so bad. Like, why are we so obsessed with their love when, yeah, she loses her livelihood basically because of him? And yeah, so I think because of this plane movie, I had this light bulb moment of I should do a series on rom-coms where we rewatch them and we have a feminist twist on it where we're really understanding what are these hidden toxic messages. And yeah, so we by now have released 9 Rom Com Vom episodes, everything from how to lose a guy in 10 days to 10 things I hate about you to 50 first dates, lots of numbers, Twilight, Hitch, You've Got Mail, Never Been Kissed, and more. And so that's the impetus for this series.
So, having done that so far for 9 episodes, what would you say like the top 3 to 5 major issues that you see like continually coming up? And one thing that I always say is that the sex portion of the movies are always focused on penetration. And so the female is never like the female focused sex pleasure aspect is never really focused on at all. And that's like the main thing that I'm always like, what the hell is that all about? But I know there are just so many different things hidden in there, that societal norms and all that crap that we could definitely be checking out the window. So I would love to hear what the top maybe 3 to 5 are.
Yeah, great question. I would say in general, we're definitely looking at gender roles and power dynamics that are in one bucket of kind of what are the expectations that are put on specifically like these straight cis women that are in these movies? Are they there simply to be objectified? In some cases, yes. Are they there to be judged for the way in which they want a career or the way in which, in the example of like Love and Basketball that we did, like for a woman to want to be a professional basketball player and she's being judged for being overly emotional. So like how do gender roles and the way that we're put as women and men in society together, what does that look like? And how can we look at that expectation from those movies in the 90s and early 2000s compared to now? Are they different? I hope so. So there's like that kind of bucket. There's also, in the case of Twilight and some other of these movies like Shallow Hal that we did, there's this idea of stalking and controlling behavior as love. So there's this kind of just, oh, like weird, like this person is like following her around. Like it's not really a loving thing. It's more in the sense that he's able to gain control over that woman. In Twilight, Edward obviously is obsessed with Bella and just like wanting to be near her at he breaks into her house to watch her sleep, and we're as the viewer supposed to be like, oh swoon, like I want a boy to break into my house and watch me sleep. Like major problem, massive issue. And then I think like another major thing that we talk about is like the obias, fat phobia, homophobia, things of that nature that show up a lot, transphobia specifically in 51st Dates. So the othering essentially that happens in these films, and like why fat people in these films are always the butt of the joke. Like why in 51st Dates is there zero reason to make fun of trans people, and yet it's consistently coming up over and over again. So like the phobia of other and why that was so scary to talk about and why it was made into a joke in so many of these rom-coms.
Wow. That's super intense. I just interviewed somebody that went through gender affirming surgery. She's a trans woman and her name is Amethyst Herrick. And she was such a lovely guest. And I just think about the fat people in the audience or the trans people in the audience or the other people in the audience that are listening to the butt of those jokes and think and just making themselves feel so unwanted and that it's just so wrong. on so many levels. And so I so appreciate the concept of this podcast. And you talked about love and how we mistake love for so many other different things. And so I'm going to ask you, why is love not enough?
Why is love not enough? Can you explain more what you mean? What do you mean by that question? Tell me more.
I'm not talking about in the rom-com like umbrella of things. I'm just saying that in relationships, you can love somebody, but oftentimes people get lost in the love, right? They're
Mm,
so into being with this person because they feel love for them. But often in many relationships and many relationships that divorce, and I am a product of a divorced marriage and was just mentioning it to you right before we got on.
mhm.
And oftentimes we come to the conclusion that there are so many other issues here that love is just not enough to hold it together. It's
Right.
important and it's essential. And yes, you want to love the person that you're going to ultimately end up with or be in a relationship with, whether you get married or not. For me, I feel like love is not enough. There has to be so much more. So that's where I'm going with this question.
Understood. I appreciate the context. I think, yeah, to answer your question, I think like when we're talking about a whole, full, healthy relationship, it includes so many different components, right? There's love, of course, but there also needs to be mutual respect. There needs to be trust. There needs to be opportunity for growth. There needs to be, if both people or one person messes up, what does that look like when you come together? Is sex important to you? What does sex look like? Is consent a part of it? Is newness a part of it? Novelty? Is comfort a part of that? Is there trauma? What does it look like to show up for the other person when there's trauma? Because as you said, yeah, love is not enough. And I feel like more often than not, phrase gets brought up when we talk about the fact that there's bills to pay and there's finances, right? Which like is very important, but there are so many parts that make up an entire whole healthy relationship. And love is a piece of that, but it also needs to have all of those other components in order to make a relationship work. And every relationship is so unique and so different, so it's really challenging, I find at least, to give someone kind of blanket advice because each person and each relationship is so unique. But I do think healthy relationships have those things in common: the trust, the respect, the good sex life, you being a friend with your partner, humor, you laughing with them. Like all of these things make up a healthy relationship.
Absolutely. So many different things that you have to really consider. And one of my guests gave me this really great tip, and I'm going to have to remember her name. It's not coming to me right now, but she has a once a month meeting with her husband, and they discuss every aspect of their relationship. Like they go through every category, like check in on the finances, check in on the whatever it may be, check on in on the intimacy. How has this thing that we've been trying going for the last month? How's that going? How can we tweak it? Blah, blah, blah. And she has a meeting with her husband every month. And I thought that was such a genius idea. I always say schedule sex because that's when both people are going to be ready for it. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
it doesn't always have to be like penetration. It could be massage. It could be a foot massage. It could be whatever it is that you guys want to do together, an intimate moment, right? And so she says that she schedules her intimate time right after that meeting so that they can connect afterwards. And I just thought that was such a genius idea. Do you
I
have
love
any
it.
other tips or tricks that you recommend to your clients or you talk about in terms of relationships?
Yeah, I think that is a fantastic tip. I had on my podcast Dr. Emily Nagoski, and she talks through the 3 secrets to a thriving sex life. And obviously, sex life is different than like a thriving relationship.
Yes,
But I do think I mentioned this when I was going off before on all the things that are important in a relationship. But one of those things is really being friends with your partner. And I think there's this, people have different ideas about, oh, your partner should be your best friend or shouldn't be your best friend. And I think if you're a woman who has like a whole gang of girlfriends and you're like, no, those are my best friends, like totally get it. But your partner does still need to be your pal. Like they need to be someone you can confide in and trust and go out and hang out with or watch a movie with at home. There needs to be multiple ways that you and your partner are able to connect. And when you are friends and when you have that trust and when you have that intimacy in your partner, all the other stuff follows, like the conversations that you have around the finances, around the things that keep your couple going, as well as your sex life. And so the more and more you can feel comfortable and that kinship with your partner, the more likely it is that you are going to have a successful and happier relationship.
100%. And you said confiding in them, right? Confiding in your partner. And that is all about communication, which is what I'm constantly talking about. You must be able to communicate with your partner to get your needs met, your pleasure needs met, and every other need met. And if
Yeah.
you're not able to verbalize and say the words, you're never going to be able to get to that point where you are satisfied in your relationship on many levels. I'm here with my must haves for the holidays. If you're looking for gifts that never go out of style, look no further. Or treat yourself to these incredible products that I can't live without. Parlor Game's estrogen and progesterone topical creams will keep your libido revving and your lady bits happy. I love the Silky Peach Cream and Vibrant Third for keeping my hormones in balance. Maybe you want to give the gift of health. Get the latest in stem cell technology, pain relief, and inflammation reduction from LifeWave. After COVID, I gave up wearing a bra, and I have found the best solution to having that seamless look without the discomfort of a bra. Cakes are non-adhesive pads that naturally adhere to your skin and always look flawless. They make such a great gift too. I never start my day without taking my Juice Plus chewables. They come in capsules too and are a great way to get the nutrition of 30 fruits and veggies into your diet easy. Don't forget the omegas for brain health and heart health. I never start my day without a Juice Plus shake. With the glycemic index of broccoli and great plant-based protein, they are perfect when you are on the go. Every day, I check on my tower garden and harvest a bowl of greens for lunch. The aeroponic garden is the ultimate in grow-at-home technology and helps me get my veggies in daily for tower to plate eating. Maybe you're wondering, what about my intimate time, Eve? Don't forget that I love Bonnie's Herbals and her sex butter and boudoir butter. And of course, everyone loves toys for the holidays. Get your sexy toys now at pleaseme.online. Happy, healthy, and sexy holidays. We talk a lot about sex here, so I'm talking specifically about sex and closing that orgasm gap because it exists in heterosexual relationships in a lot of them. And so let's jump off of the heterosexual relationships for now, because I know that you like to focus on the LGBTQ community. And I would love to know like what your participation in that community is. If there is one, I am bisexual myself.
I'm also bisexual for the record.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm someone who has been like thinking about my sexuality for many years. Like I didn't quite feel comfortable using the term bi for myself until pretty recently. And I think even though I was a little later to use the term, I had always felt this is messy. Like my sexuality feels very messy. And I just was very hesitant to put a label on it for a really long time because it felt so boxed in if I were to use a label. But I think like the more and more I chatted with bi people and learned more about the bi community and learned more about the label and kind of what that means, it felt more and more comfortable for me. And of course, as we know, sexuality is fluid, it's ever changing. It definitely doesn't have to be the label that you use for your life. But yeah, that's my participation in the community and like my connection, I would say.
Got it. And I love your explanation about your comfort level around actually using it to identify yourself. I too didn't ever really think of myself as bi until I got divorced and started having these experiences that I never really thought that I would even enjoy. And then I was like, oh, I like this. But for a few years, I was bi curious and by experimental or whatever, those all of the different layers that don't really commit you to the word,
Hold me
right?
to it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't until my daughter came home and said, Mom, I'm bisexual, that I said, you know what? I am too. and it's okay.
Let me
And
cry. That's so sweet.
yeah, and it's interesting because through watching my kids grow up, I am becoming more in tune with my own sexuality as well in terms of like really identifying what it is that I like, and not just what I like and don't like, because that I already knew, but how I identify myself. And as I'm learning and through this podcast and growing, I'm seeing that I really am part of a lot of different categories. And that's okay. And like you said, it doesn't have to be like how you identify forever, because things are fluid and things change as we go throughout life, and not being so black and white about everything, but understanding. And I feel like the younger generation has this down pat where they view gender and sexuality as very fluid, and I think that is a beautiful thing, because why be so rigid about things? Really open your mind.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's so interesting because like I live in Oakland, California in a bubble of liberal bubble, queer bubble, more BIPOC folks who live here. And it's just so wild because I do think that the Gen Z, Gen Alpha are much more in tune with their sexuality and what that means. And I still think in so many parts of our country in America, like it's still such a thing that is scary for people to say, I'm bi or I'm queer, I'm gay, I'm trans. Like it's really like dependent on where you live and what your culture and what your neighborhood and community and friends and family look like. And so I feel very lucky to be able to even say out loud, oh, I might be this, I might be that. And not everyone gets that privilege, which really sucks.
100%. Yesterday, I was watching this movie called Will and Harper about what's his name?
Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell. I'm telling you, I'm not a movie person, so everybody
All
knows who
good.
Will Ferrell is. I would see him and go, "Oh yeah, he's
I
in
know that guy.
me," but I wouldn't remember what his name is probably because I'm not like a movie person. But anyway, so he goes on this road trip with Harper, who is a friend of his that he's had for many years, who recently decided to transition, and he's trans or she's trans, and she decided to transition, and they are doing this road trip, and it's such a powerful example of how where you are in the country could really affect your life and the way that you are able to be in the world. And in California, obviously you have much more acceptance there, but they were in Texas, I don't know, like eatery or something, and they decided to get dressed up, and he was like wearing like this crazy costume or whatever, and it just brought a lot of attention and like unwanted attention to Harper, who was the one who was transitioning, and she felt so uncomfortable. And I was watching that and just like cringing
Yeah,
on the
really
inside
upsetting.
for her and for him too.
Mhm.
And why don't you just tell me what your thoughts were about that, since we're talking about movies here?
Yes, yeah, I highly recommend that everybody watch Will and Harper. I think it's a really nice kind of dipping your toe into what it's like for a trans person and her best friend to take like a buddy road trip and kind of things that happen for trans and queer people that like usually don't happen for straight people in terms of unwanted attention, insults, the amount of online hate that Harper in particular and Will Ferrell also received from people, and it's very moving. It's a very much like a touching picture of the way in which these two people have grown and changed over time and how long they've known each other and what it's like for Harper as a trans woman in her 60s, I believe. And yeah, in terms of that scene, that was a really tough one to watch because clearly there's press that's associated with this movie. There's like different things in order to get like attention on the documentary, but Will Will feels very bad that this was a part of their press tour because they describe it as feeling like they're in a fishbowl, like they're at this Texas steakhouse and there are like thousands of people filming them on their phones. And it feels very uncomfortable as an audience member to be witness to it because we are also watching them, right? Like it's this like meta moment where you're realizing like, oh yeah, like obviously this is a documentary that they put together, but we are also consumers of it. And I think the final thing I'll say is that just the amount of online hate that queer and trans people receive, like outward vitriolic bullshit that people just have no problem sharing on the internet is absolutely disgusting. And I'm appalled that like people feel so comfortable like yelling at people and calling them insults on the internet when they have no idea who these people are. And so, of course, like that gets to people. Like that kind of bullying and harassment and hate is the reason why trans suicide rates are so high and why it's so important that we are, as a society, not only able to accept trans and queer people exactly as they are, but allow them the ability to transition exactly how they want to with medical care and with gender affirming care. And our laws need to show that we are supportive of trans people in schools and in bathrooms and all these places where they deserve to be. And so I think there's a lot of work that there is to be done. But I do think, listener, if you have not seen Will and Harper, that's a great place to start, just to really dip your toe into what it's like to be a trans person.
100%. I thought it was so well done. And I thought it was really amazing that, all of the emotion that came out of that one scene for Will and how badly he felt about putting Harper, in that situation in the first place, and all of the hate that came from that situation and them reading the messages and how it was also affecting him as well and his understanding of her experience as a trans person. So I thought it was super powerful. I definitely also recommend it for sure. And so I am going to sort of transition here. And I don't remember if we talked about this or not, because I feel like we're just like on the fly today.
Gavin.
Yes, we are having a good time. But normally I do a role play at the end. So
Mhm.
the most recent ones in season 4, we've been doing a role play at the end of the show just to like model conversations between people. So Danielle and I are going to be a couple, and one of us is going to introduce the idea of masturbating more, and the other person is going to just feed off of that energy. So action.
Hey, do you have a couple minutes to chat about something I've been thinking about?
Sure. Yeah, I've got time. What's up?
Okay, great. The last time that we had sex was amazing, and our sex life is incredible. Something that I have been thinking about a lot that I've been missing is taking a little bit more time for myself to masturbate a few times a week, because I feel like before we got together, I used to do it a lot more. And now that we've been together for a year, I feel like I just haven't really done it as much. And I don't know, I just wanted to know what you thought about that.
Okay. I'm glad that you felt like our last experience was great. I definitely feel like our sex life is amazing. Do you feel like are we on like different levels in terms of our needs? You just need sex more? Or is it the solo play that you want more of?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think I'm still figuring it out too, but like my inkling is that I really like the cadence that we are having sex at. And I feel like if I could also just take time to have solo play, I could maybe explore certain things that we don't do, which I'm totally cool with, but I am interested in like exploring them on my own. So because we live in such a small space, I wanted to talk to you about what that would be like in terms of timing, or if there's like a certain time of day that maybe you think that I should put this into my schedule. Or yeah, I just wanted to tell you what I've been thinking and get your thoughts on it so you can help me.
Yeah, I'm surprised, but I definitely am on board. And, I also just want to put out there that I think it would be really hot for me to watch you masturbate. And I don't know if that's something that you would be interested in.
Wow, I didn't even think about that. I'm intrigued. I think that maybe I could try a few solo sessions on my own for the next few weeks and just see how it feels to be fully by myself. And then maybe we can check in about it afterwards and I can tell you what I'm thinking about you joining. How does that sound?
I'm totally open for that. And I also just want to mention too that you said that there are things that you might want to try on your own. And if there are ever any things that you want to try with me, I am completely open to trying new and different things because I feel like our sex life is something that I want to build on and I don't want it to get stagnant. So I'm really open to these conversations and maybe we should have them more often.
Wow, I love that. Thank you so much for supporting me and loving me.
Of course. And masturbation is such a healthy part of our lives. And I definitely feel like if you feel like you need that more, then go for it.
And
And
scene.
scene.
That's
Very
great.
good. We were on that together and scene. That's so funny. That was a lot of fun. And so that
Yeah.
brings me to my next question because I know that you have a study that you want to talk about today. So tell us about this really amazing study. I'm super interested in hearing all about it.
Yes, we have a theme of our masturbation topic, which is that I want you, whoever's listening, to be a part of a historic magic wand study. You can join right now, and I want to tell you all about it. So, the magic wand study is the first of its kind. And as you may or may not know, there is very little research on sexual health and specifically for women and people with vulvas. And the research that is available often focuses on sexual dysfunction. Few studies analyze the positive benefits of sexual pleasure, and the Magic Wand study will be the first scientifically backed study to analyze how using a vibrator, specifically the Magic Wand rechargeable, can improve participants' quality of life. And so I'm very excited about this. We are recruiting 500 participants to be a part of this amazing study. And the Magic Wand study will look at a range of sexual, physical, and mental health factors, including sexual desire, orgasmic response, partner intimacy, self confidence, sleep quality, focus, mood, anxiety, stress, menstruation, peri or menopause, and more. And so basically, you can be single, you can be in a relationship. The main kind of requirements are that you're older than 18 and you are in the US or Canada and you have a vulva, and there are like a few other things that you need to be aware of. So you can learn more at magicwandstudy. And yeah, I'm just so excited. I feel like this is just making history, this study. So I would love for you to be involved.
I would love to help you get people. So people listening to the show, go on this site and sign up. And I probably will sign up myself because I love to masturbate. So why not make it a point to do it for the study, right? In the name of science.
Right for science. That's right.
Yes, I love that. I love that. And tell me where my listeners can find you.
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram at Sex Ed with DB Podcast, on TikTok at Sex Ed with DB. And you can go to my website, sexedwithdb.com. And yeah, follow me there, email me there. Also, if you are a sexual health professional and you are wanting to up your sexual health business, I have a workshop called Building a Profitable Online Sexual Health Brand. And I would love to work with you to help you grow your business. So yeah, make sure you check me out. And yeah, Eve, thank you so much for having me. This has been really fun.
Of course, this has been so much fun. And I want all of my listeners out there to pick up their phones right now. If you love this episode as much as I did, copy and paste and send it to a friend or two that you think would really relate. This is how our podcasts grow. You can find me on pleaseme.online. All my things are there. And check out my affiliates. And Merry Christmas. This is the Christmas
Merry Christmas.
episode. So Merry Christmas, everybody. And this has been a really great, fun conversation to bring to you, a special gift on Christmas Day. So thank you so much for being with me today. And until next time.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
For ad-free listening, exclusive bonus episodes, Eve's library of archived webinars, and early access to new releases of Please Me, become a monthly supporter on Patreon. Simply open the Patreon app on your phone, search for Please Me, and subscribe today for premium content and more. Cheers to finding your pleasure and big clit energy.